The movie opens with a voiceover. There was once a legend long ago about people born with a special gift. That gift was music, so powerful and beautiful that it could summon spirits from both the past and the future. In West Africa, these people were called the Krats. Their music could heal entire communities. But soon, people realized that it also attracted darkness. In 1932, in a small town, we see a young man named Sammy arrive at a church. His face is covered in fresh wounds, and he's holding a broken guitar. He walks inside, where his father, the pastor, sees him and immediately urges him to come in. "Leave that guitar," his father says. "You need to walk away from music, follow God, and repent." But Sammy holds tightly to the broken instrument. Suddenly, he sees flashes, a vision of people dying, and one of himself getting slashed across the face. To understand what happened to him, we have to go back one day. We meet Sammy's twin cousins, Smoke and Stack. They've just returned to their hometown after years of hiding out in Chicago. They had robbed a dangerous gang there and fled. Now they're back, waiting on a gangster who's supposed to sell them a property. Soon, the gangster shows up in a car and takes them to the place. Smoke and Stack plan to turn it into a bar and music venue for black folks. They pay the gangster a large sum and warn him, "If you or your gang come near another spot in this town, we'll kill you." The gangster agrees and leaves. Then they go pick up their cousin Sammy. They all head to a hidden location where they've stashed a truck filled with liquor bottles, all for the grand opening party. But out of nowhere, a snake appears in front of them. Before it can strike, Smoke quickly kills it. After that, they thoroughly check the truck to make sure everything's still in place. Smoke wants to open the bar next week, but Stack insists, "Today's a good day. We should open tonight." Smoke hesitates at first, but agrees. Under one condition, they'll split up to get everything ready faster. Stack agrees and takes Sammy with him to prep the venue, while Smoke takes the truck into town to meet some old friends. When Smoke arrives, he sees a young girl and asks her to keep an eye on the truck. He says, "If anyone comes near or tries to steal anything, honk the horn. I'll pay you 20 cents per minute." She agrees immediately. Smoke heads into a local shop and finds his old friend Bo and Bo's daughter, Lisa. He tells Bo he needs help. They're opening a bar tonight. But before he can finish, the girl outside starts honking like crazy. Smoke rushes outside to find two men trying to rob the truck. He shoots one in the back and the other in the leg. One of them recognizes Smoke and begs, "Man, I didn't know it was your truck." Smoke snaps, "You didn't know this was my truck?" The guy swears he didn't, but the girl speaks up, "I told him it was yours. He didn't believe me." Back inside, Smoke gives Bo some money to help patch up the injured men. Just then, Bo's wife Grace shows up. Smoke asks her for 100 large fish, a sign, and a menu for the new place. She agrees, but asks for payment. He tells her, "You'll get whatever you need, just make it quick." Meanwhile, we cut back to Stack and Sammy. They're having a good time together. Stack tells Sammy that Smoke actually killed their father because he was abusive and beat them constantly. Then, to change the subject, Stack points to Sammy's guitar. "Take care of that," he says. "It's rare. We brought it all the way from Chicago." He asks Sammy to play, and Sammy starts strumming. His talent is undeniable. Afterward, the two head to the train station to pick up a professional musician, someone key to tonight's show. And sure enough, they find him. We learn that the new musician's name is Salim. At first, he refused Stack's offer, but when Stack promised him a good amount of money and some bottles of liquor, Salim quickly agreed. He started playing music alongside Sammy, right there in the street, and a crowd began to gather. Stack took advantage of the moment and announced the grand opening of their new venue, sharing the address with the people. Among the crowd, Sammy noticed a girl named Berlin, and he was instantly drawn to her. He approached and invited her to the show. She smiled and said, "I'll think about it," then walked away. Suddenly Mary, an old flame of Stack's, appeared and confronted him for leaving her years ago. Stack hit her with a few cold, stinging words, enough to make her walk away in tears. Later, as the group walked down the road, Salim spotted a group of enslaved workers and was visibly upset. Years ago, he'd been captured and forced to play music for free. Ever since, he's despised anything that even resembled slavery. Eventually, the group recruited a man named Danny, who would be the venue's new security guard. Meanwhile, we cut back to Smoke. He's placing a flower on a particular grave, then visits Sandy, asking her to be the chef for tonight's event. We learn that Sandy is a kind-hearted voodoo priestess who still loves Smoke, and that the grave outside belongs to their son. At the same time, somewhere else in the city, a strange man is seen walking through smoke that seems to rise from his own body. He knocks on the door of a married couple and claims he needs help, that he's being chased by Native Americans who kidnapped his wife. The couple, feeling sorry for him, let him inside. A short time later, a group of Native Americans arrive and ask the woman if she's seen the man. She lies and says, "No one like that came here." One of them warns her, "That man is a deceiver. He's not who you think." Still, she insists, "I told you he's not here." At that point, one of the native men urges the leader to leave immediately. "The sun's about to set," he says. And so they all leave quickly. The woman goes back inside and is horrified to find that the strange man has bitten her husband's neck, killing him. But then, shockingly, her husband rises again, and she screams in terror. By nightfall, everything is ready. The venue, now fully transformed into a buzzing nightclub and casino, opens its doors. Berlin arrives with Smoke, and Sammy is thrilled. He's performing tonight. Mary also shows up and strikes up a conversation with Sammy. She shares that her mother had passed away the night before, and she's heartbroken about it. Suddenly, Smoke tells Sammy to get on stage and play. Just after, Stack walks over to Mary and tries to smooth things over. He asks her to leave the place, but Mary refuses. "I'm staying here like any other guest," she says. "You couldn't even come to my mother's funeral, the woman who raised you and your brother. You didn't even leave a single flower on her grave." Stack replies sarcastically, "We sent her plenty when she was alive." Then he walks away coldly. Back on stage, Salim finishes his set, and Sammy takes over, stepping up with full confidence. His performance is mesmerizing, music that captivates every soul in the room. That's when we realize Sammy possesses the gift of a Kratz. His music is so powerful, it summons spirits from both the future and the past to play with him. But as the legend goes, while this power draws good spirits, it also attracts the evil ones. Suddenly, Sammy sees them, dark entities arriving in the club, including the vampire who had escaped from the Native Americans, and the two people he had already turned. As the three strangers approached the venue, Danny, the doorman, spotted them from a distance and quickly sent someone to call the twins. He was surprised to see white people trying to enter the party, especially in an era where racial segregation was still the norm. Danny decided not to let them in until the twins arrived. The first of the three introduced himself as Rimac, and the others were John and Bert. As soon as Sammy arrived, Rimac recognized him and said, "You're the one playing music tonight." Smoke was suspicious and kept questioning them, asking, "Where did you say you're from?" Rimac replied, "We came from a nearby village. We heard the music and loved it. We wanted to come celebrate with you." But Smoke raised an eyebrow. "The nearest village is 30 miles away. You walked all that distance." Rimac quickly changed the subject, and suddenly, all three began to play and sing a strange, eerie song. Smoke didn't like the vibe and told them to leave immediately. Rimac tried to bribe them, saying, "We've got a lot of money. We'll spend it all here tonight." Still, Smoke insisted they go. "Why are you letting Mary in?" Rimac asked. "She's white too." Sandy stepped in and answered firmly, "Mary's part of the family." When the strangers didn't move, Smoke pulled his gun on them and said, "Leave now." Reluctantly, they backed off. "Fine, we'll go. But maybe you'll change your mind," Rimac said with a smirk. Meanwhile, Mary approached Stack and told him they'd run into a financial problem soon. Most of the black farmers attending tonight didn't have enough money to cover the club's operating costs. She suggested letting the three strangers in and taking as much money from them as possible. Stack agreed and asked Mary to go see how much they really had. Mary stepped outside to meet them. They were still singing that same strange tune. Rimac noticed her and said, "What brings you out here?" She explained that if they had real money, she could let them in. John reached into his pocket and pulled out several gold coins. Mary was surprised. The coins looked old and odd. Rimac assured her, "They're ancient gold coins. I've got plenty more." Then, before she could respond, he suddenly interrupted her, staring into her eyes. "You're in pain. I can feel it. A heavy sadness," he said. "I can take it away." Mary hesitated. "My mother just passed recently." But she trailed off. She saw Remac's eyes turning red. A chill ran down her spine. She instantly knew their intentions were dark. She stood up quickly, pulled out her gun, and told them, "You need to leave, now." But the moment she turned her back, Rimac leapt into the air and bit her. Inside the casino, Berlin was singing on stage, completely immersed in her performance. The crowd was loving it, singing along with her. Suddenly, Maria arrived and asked Danny if she could come in. "Of course," Danny said. "You think I'd stop you?" She entered and began dancing. A few minutes later, Salim came to the door and told Danny it was too hot inside. Danny handed him the door duty and said, "Watch the entrance for a bit while I take a bathroom break." Meanwhile, Mary, now infected, returned to Stack, handed him the gold coins, and led him to a private room. Just then, a fight broke out between two guests, escalating quickly. Smoke intervened and asked Sammy to go get Stack. Sammy refused, so Smoke went himself. When he opened the door, he was horrified. Maria was biting Stack's neck. He immediately pulled out his gun and fired multiple shots. But to his shock, Maria stood right back up as if nothing had happened. She fled the room, shouting, "You're all going to die." Smoke ran to Stack, trying desperately to stop the bleeding, but it was too late. Stack died in his arms, whispering his final words, "I love you." Sandy immediately instructed Salim to lock the doors and get everyone out. Salim cleared the entire club, telling guests they would reopen tomorrow. Meanwhile, Sammy blamed himself for Stack's death. He had seen Maria lead him into that room, but did nothing. Sandy remembered Maria's last words, "We're going to kill you all," and realized something. "She's not alone," she said. "That means more of them are out there." She begged Smoke to move Stack's body out of the club. "I think they're demons and Maria might have turned Stack into one of them," she warned. Smoke refused. He demanded she perform a ritual to bring Stack back. But Sandy apologized. "I can't help him," she said sadly. At the same time, Grace was trying to convince her husband, Bo, to leave the club. He agreed and went outside to get the car ready. Inside, Sandy led Smoke and the others out of the room, locked the door behind her, and handed the key to Sammy. "Don't ever open that door," she warned. Just then, Danny returned, begging Salim to let him in. Salim asked, "Where have you been?" Danny said, "Nowhere, I just went to the bathroom and walked around a bit." But Smoke appeared, cutting him off. He shouted at Danny, furious, "Stack is dead, and you weren't doing your job." At that moment, Sandy turned to Danny and asked, "Why do you need permission to come inside?" Danny got flustered, trying to dodge the question, and changed the subject. But Sandy's eyes narrowed. She knew something was off. "You're one of them, aren't you?" she said coldly. "You're a demon." Danny tried to defend himself, acting offended, but Sandy wasn't buying it. She turned to Smoke and said, "I can feel it. He's changed. He's one of them now." Thinking quickly, Danny pretended to be done with the job. "Just give me my money," he said, "and I'll leave." Smoke reached into his pocket, but as he handed Danny the cash, Danny grabbed his wrist and lunged in for a bite. Smoke didn't hesitate. He shot Danny right in the face. He rushed back inside and slammed the door. Danny followed, but when he reached the threshold, he suddenly couldn't cross it, as if something was holding him back. Sandy turned to Smoke and said with certainty, "These aren't ghosts. And they're not demons either. They're vampires." Before she could say another word, Stack, now turned into a vampire, woke up in the locked room. He knocked on the door, calling out, "Let me out. It's me." But Sandy looked at Smoke with fear in her eyes. "That's not your brother anymore," she warned. Stack tried to act normal, begging, "Come on, man. I'm fine. Just open the door." Smoke, torn, went to grab the key. But Stack suddenly smashed the door down and burst into the room. Quick thinking, Sandy threw holy water mixed with garlic on him. He screamed in pain and fled the building. Moments later, Lisa wanted to go outside to search for Bo, but they convinced her it was too dangerous. Sandy gathered everyone and explained how to fight vampires. Wooden stakes, garlic, but your strongest weapon is sunlight. When Smoke asked if Stack could still be saved, Sandy explained, "Vampire thoughts are all connected. Once they turn, they're gone." She pulled Smoke aside and made him promise, "If I get bitten, you kill me before I turn. My son is waiting for me in the afterlife." Meanwhile, someone discovered a body on the floor, surrounded by what looked like blood. Sammy and Smoke took the body outside, only to discover that outside was no longer safe. The vampires were throwing a party, singing, dancing, and celebrating. Everyone who had left earlier had been turned. Among them was Bo. Their numbers had grown massively. Back inside, Sandy ordered everyone to eat garlic, just to be sure no one else had been turned. Berlin refused. Smoke pulled a gun on her, And when Sammy objected, Smoke punched him without hesitation. Berlin, shaken, finally ate the garlic, and thankfully she was fine. So was everyone else. Then, Smoke made a shocking discovery. The man he and Sammy had dragged out earlier was still alive. The blood wasn't blood, it was red grapes. Just as they realized their mistake, the man knocked on the door, calling out, "Something's wrong out here." But before Smoke could let him back in, Danny lunged from the shadows, bit the man's neck, and drank his blood. Out front, Bo appeared before Grace, trying to lure her outside. "Come on, sweetheart," he said. "Let's go home." Grace, terrified, realized what he had become, a vampire. She refused to open the door or let him in. Suddenly, Rimac appeared beside her and Smoke. He looked at Smoke and said, "There's only one way out of this. Work with me, and everything will be fine." Smoke stayed silent. Rimac turned to Grace. "If you won't cooperate, I'll just go to your house and kill your daughter." Grace started screaming, begging them to stop. Then Rimac looked at Sammy and said, "I want you. Your music is powerful. It calls out to my ancestors." He offered them a deal. "Join us. Become vampires. Live forever." Salim snapped, "We're not letting you take Sammy." Rimac smirked, "You're all going to die anyway. The man who sold you this place planned to kill you all in the morning. Because you're black, he was going to take your money and the club." Suddenly, the newly turned man stood up, a wicked smile spreading across his face. Stack tried to convince his brother, Smoke, to join them. His words were starting to get through when the others quickly pulled Smoke inside and slammed the door shut. Meanwhile, Gracie was completely breaking down. "If we wait until morning, my daughter will be dead," she screamed. She couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Come in." That was exactly what Rimac had been waiting for. Her invitation gave him full access to the house. Inside, Smoke and the others quickly prepared their weapons and Molotov cocktails, readying for the inevitable attack. As soon as the vampires came in, Gracie threw a Molotov at Rimac, but she missed. Instead, she lunged at her husband Bo and drove a wooden stake straight through his heart, even as flames consumed them both. Chaos exploded in the room. Berlin and Sammy opened fire on the vampires, while Smoke and Sandy took them down with wooden stakes to the chest. But there were too many of them. They charged with terrifying force. In the heat of the fight, Sandy splashed garlic water on Rimac, and all the other vampires screamed in pain, as if they felt it too. That's when Sandy realized they were all linked to him. What hurt Rimac hurt them all. She turned to tell Smoke, but suddenly, Stack attacked her from behind. Before Smoke could get to her, Stack bit Sandy. Without hesitation, Berlin torched him with fire, forcing him to retreat. Smoke rushed to Sandy, who was bleeding out in his arms. She looked up at him, weak and fading, and said, "Keep your promise." With tears in his eyes, Smoke ended her life before she could turn. Salim then sacrificed himself, holding off the vampires so the others could escape through the back door. But as soon as they stepped outside, Rimac and Stack were waiting. Stack lunged at Smoke. Rimac went for Sammy. Berlin jumped in to defend her lover and stabbed Rimac in the back with a stake, but he turned on her, biting deep into her neck. Smoke reacted instantly, blasting Rimac with fire to get him off Berlin. With her dying breath, Berlin told Sammy to run. Sammy took off, sprinting into the night, but Rimac caught up with him and slashed his face with his claws. The same scar we saw in the film's opening scene. Back with Smoke and Stack, the brothers were locked in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Smoke got hold of a wooden stake and pinned Stack down, but Stack fought back hard, knocking the weapon from his hand. Meanwhile, Rimac told Sammy, "Holy words won't save you." Then, he held Sammy underwater, trying to drown him. Inside, Stack finally overpowered Smoke and pinned him to the ground. His fangs aimed for Smoke's neck. But at the last second, Smoke flipped him over, reclaimed the stake, and got the upper hand. Stack looked up and whispered, "I'm sorry." Smoke, voice trembling, replied, "I'm sorry too, for not protecting you." Back outside, Rimac lifted Sammy with one hand, choking him. Sammy spotted his guitar, reached out, and smashed it into Remac's head. All the vampires screamed in unison, but Rimac didn't die. He grabbed Sammy's head, pulled him in close, and went for his neck. Just as Rimac bared his fangs, Smoke appeared, driving the stake deep into Remac's chest. Every vampire screamed in agony. Smoke rushed to Sammy, checking his neck. He hadn't been bitten. Right then, the sun rose. Its light burned through Rimac and the rest of the vampires. Rimac caught fire, his demonic spirit screaming as it was dragged back to hell. all before the steak was even pulled from his chest. Later, Smoke and Sammy opened a mysterious crate from the car. Smoke looked Sammy in the eyes and said, "You gotta be strong now. I won't be with you for this last part." Sammy nodded, climbed into the car with the broken pieces of his guitar, and drove back to the church. The very scene we saw in the movie's opening shot. Smoke sat alone outside, on top of the crate, lost in memories of his brother, the good ones. He opened the box. Inside, an assault rifle and a sniper rifle. Moments later, the mob boss arrived with his gang, armed and ready, coming to kill Smoke's people just because they were black. But the place was empty. Then, one by one, Smoke started picking them off from a distance with the sniper. When he ran out of bullets, he moved in close, pulled out the assault rifle, and finished off the rest of the gang. 3 of them tried to flee in a car, but Smoke hurled a grenade at them, blowing them sky high. But sadly, Smoke took a bullet to his side. Even though he was bleeding badly, he pushed through the pain, stormed into the mob boss's hideout, the man who sold him the place, and emptied his entire clip into him. As the smoke cleared, Smoke realized he wasn't going to make it. The blood loss was too much. This was the end. Cut to years later. We learned that Sammy survived. He never let go of his guitar, kept playing year after year, until he became an old man. One night, he's in a Chicago casino, playing music, same as always. A security guard walks up and says, "2 people are asking to see you." Sammy just nods and says, "Let them in." The guard turns to open the door, but something about it clearly spooks him. The door's open, and Stack walks in with Mary. Stack looks at Sammy and says, "Don't be scared." He explains that his brother, Smoke, couldn't bring himself to kill him that night. Instead, he made Stack promise never to harm Sammy, and he kept that promise. Then, Stack makes an offer. "If you want, I can turn you. You could play forever, live forever." But Sammy just smiles. "No," he says. This is enough." Stack nods with quiet respect. Then, he says, "Play me something old." Sammy reaches under the table and pulls out their father's guitar. He strums the first tune Stack ever heard from him, the one he played in the car all those years ago. Stack and Mary sit back, listening, smiling, completely lost in the music. When it ends, Stack gently places $200 on the table, the same amount he'd once promised Sammy long ago. "Take care of yourself," he says. And just like that, he walks away. But before he can leave, Sammy calls out, "Hey, Stack, that night, the one where everything changed, what did it feel like?" Stack pauses, then turns to him and says with a half smile, "It was the best day of my life, because me and my brother, we made our dream come true. We brought our people together, gave them a place to belong." As Stack disappears into the night, Sammy sits alone, eyes welling up as he remembers everything. Clapperboard if you enjoyed this wild ride of brotherhood, betrayal, and bloodsuckers. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic movie breakdowns like this one.